Okay, my friends, this is something they call monkey fingers. Now, I don't know exactly where these pictures came from, but there's other shots that she's going to show that don't look exactly like these, but I do know what they are, and she's calling them monkey fingers. And if the light hits them just a certain way, they look like fingers. And I do agree that that happens. And I will show you. There's one called Penis Rock, and it's not a penis, but I'll show it to you. And this is what they're seeing here. Whether or not that's a hand, it could be. Where those pictures came from, I don't know. But the ones I'm going to show you are the ones that are not fingers. But I will show you what they are, and they are much more spectacular than fingers. Okay, so we start with this. She's saying this takes pareidolia to a whole new level, talking about rocks, and it's just erosion and so forth. Well, I would expect that she would engage with me because I'm going to show you it is not pareidolia, and it may not be fingers, but that doesn't mean it's not biology. Okay, my friends, we're going to get right down to the heart of the matter. This takes a pareidolia to a whole new level. Well, she's looking at these things. They call them monkey fingers. And she's saying, oh, they're seeing these thinking they're fingers. Well, maybe that is pareidolia. Let's look into it. Okay, this is Origins Explained. Excellent presentation. She's going to be talking about these giant stone fingers and so forth. Now listen to what she has to say. And here we go. I think her name is Katrina. I'm not certain, but here we go.
Welcome, fellow seekers of the strange and unexplained. I honestly should change the name of the channel to Origins Unexplained. Today, prepare to have your perception of history shattered as we dive headfirst into 10 mysteries from the past that are so mysterious we still haven't been able to explain them. From ancient surgeons performing impossible feats to entire towns gripped by a bizarre dancing frenzy and landscapes whispering tales of giants and sorcery, we have a lot to cover, so I hope you're ready for it. Monkey fingers. Ever looked at a rock formation and think this looks like it could have been an ancient structure, or maybe a large sculpture, or even a hand? In Morocco's Zadeh Gorge, the monkey fingers or monkey paws formation takes that pareidolia to a whole new level. Here the rock looks like fingers of stone reaching towards the sky. It's a sight that makes you wonder if some mischievous giant decided to play a game with the landscape. This region is deeply connected to Berber culture, which was very inspired by the dramatic landscape. These striking formations, nestled within the Atlas Mountains, are a testament to nature's artistic flair, sculpted by millennia of wind and water. The Zadeh Gorge itself is a geological masterpiece, a deep canyon carved by the river, revealing layers of sedimentary rock like a history book written in stone. But why monkey fingers? The resemblance is uncanny, especially when the light catches them just right. You almost expect a furry hand to twitch, but they may not be monkey fingers at all. One story goes that these towering fingers were once giants turned to stone by a powerful sorcerer, their frozen forms forever guarding the secrets of the valley. The entire region is steeped in Berber culture and legends. Have you ever heard of the Valley of Human Bodies? It's near the land of the monkey fingers, and the name alone is enough to send shivers down your spine. Local lore paints a grim picture. These rock formations are said to be famished travelers, turned to stone by hunger. Imagine a whole valley frozen in a moment of despair. As you wander through the gorge, the air thickens with an almost tangible sense of mystery. Even the wind in the valley has its own local legend. It is said that the wind has a son living in the town of Bouman Dadeh, so every winter he rushes down the valley to visit him. The Berbers, along with the Greeks, also believed in a giant named Antaeus. He was said to be the son of Gaia, Earth, and Poseidon, the sea. His strength was tied to the earth. Whenever he touched it, he would regain his power. He fought many battles, but was finally defeated by Hercules, who was so strong he lifted him off the ground, breaking his connection to his source of power. According to Plutarch, the Roman commander Quintus Sertorius was shown a large mound by local Berbers, which they claimed was Antaeus' grave. He is said to have excavated it and found an enormous skeleton. What happened to that skeleton is unclear. These legends reflect the Berber connection to their land and ancient beliefs in powerful, larger-than-life beings. The sculpture.
All right, let's talk about that. All right, don't forget, she's talking about Morocco, Dade's Gorge, and the Valley of Human Bodies. This is up on the top of Typhon's back, and it appears to be somewhere near his digestive system. We're going to take a look at that. Okay, my friends, hang on tight. We are mud fossil people. We know the difference between red and black and this pinkish color and the yellows and so forth, and what all these different types of geology, you'd call it, what they represent, and how these abrupt transitions occur in colors, especially between the black and the red, which are two states of iron oxygenation, and yellow is also in that area. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, let's look in close. What is going on here? What's all that little things going on? What is this all about? All right, look at that. Now, have a geologist explain this to me. This is in the desert, and then it comes to this, and then we come into the red. So we go from black into sort of a fuzzy haze into pretty bright red. Why would that happen? What the heck is going on here? And look at the intricacy of these little hills and valleys, which is what a geologist would say, oh, well, that's just erosion. Hills and valleys, so to speak. Now, I say no. I think this is biology, and this is a transition between expended blood, which is the black blood, which has the oxygen out of it, and the red blood, which is the iron oxygen rich blood. And this is also part of the fluid system of the body, and I believe this is the serum area, which is a little different. It's more of a lymph fluid. It's a pinky fluid. All right, when you look at these things carefully, you can see this is not just accidental runoff of whatever. You got to understand the chemistry and the plumbing of the body and everything. All right, this is transition chemistry in the body of Typhon. And where is it in the body of Typhon? Well, it's right here. Right here. Now that's that Dade's Gorge they're talking about with all those fingers. I believe that's got something to do with the digestive system. But down here, I believe this is the heart right here. That's the two valves of the heart, and this is the plumbing that runs up through the body from the heart. Now, of course, it's not a normal creature. It's a gigantic dragon. So I don't have all kinds of specifics on it, but to me it looks like this is the vein blood area. Very dense muscle walls and a chamber. And this is the other chamber, which is the red, the black and the red, and the ventricle walls between them. What's going on here? I don't know. It's pretty interesting looking. Maybe a heart surgeon would have some idea of what this is at the very bottom of the heart. But again, this is not your standard biology. But I believe those are the two chambers of the heart, and that's where all the blood pumps up and spreads out. and this is the return one way or the other, and this is a bunch of bleed off. This red blood has run out of there. It's just sort of, because red, it stays very fluid. So the red will run out, and the black just hardens up. That's the difference. It's called hematite and magnetite. They're both iron rich, but one of them has less oxygen, and that's this one, the black. And things don't grow there. They just don't grow well in that kind of black iron rich stuff. Normally in the red it grows pretty good. I'm surprised not to see a bunch of things growing here. Because usually you see all kinds of things growing, which intrigues me a little bit. Look at that. Look at those. It's like in the arteries or whatever these things are. It could be just blood cells for all I know. I mean, the size of the creature is staggeringly large. And this is absolutely some kind of blood vessels or something, which is probably the coating of the heart. The coating of the heart is so covered with blood vessels. I'm sure that's what it is now that I'm thinking about it. And whether it wrapped around here and broke open, or I don't know, you know what I mean? It's hard to say, but you can see the separation of the black and the red, and that's exactly what you're going to see. And you're going to see all that little vascular network completely surrounding the heart. I mean, it's just intense with, well, let me show you. The more I look at this, I think these are the three valves that come up the top of the heart. So the heart is down below there. And these are the tubing that comes off, running out of there. And this is the surrounding tissue that wraps around that investment of tubing. And then you got all that muscle surrounding, and this is basically muscle. That's what I was wondering about. I said, boy, this is crazy, because as far as I'm concerned, that is from muscle, and I'll show you why I can say that. And that muscle in the heart is so, well, your heart does this 24 hours a day. There's just nothing but muscle, and then there's just fed with tons of blood. You need tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of blood to pump the blood in your heart. Your heart can pump 6 gallons of blood in 1 minute. There's so much muscle, and that's what all that is feeding. That's what threw me off for a while here. But now I think this is just the plumbing where it was coming up. I'm pretty sure. Oh, you got to check this out. As I was saying, I think these might be the actual tubes that come out, all three of these, because that's the normal in the heart. Now, you got your red, you got your black, you got the yellow colors, you got your tubing coming out there, big tubing. Now, look at this. This is what a heart looks like. Now, it breaks right, there's a seam right there, they break off, and the top pops right off. And you see this tubing running here. What we were looking at before, I think, is these three spots right at the top. And then the plumbing comes out the sides, like here, you see? And that's what we were basically looking at. Oops. Hold on, I'm lost. I got lost. I must have got lost somewhere down the line. Anyway, we're in the valley over here in Morocco, and that's where we are here, right? That's where she is. Now, we were down here, I believe, where the heart is, wherever I was before, but it's down in here. You got to dig around, but boy, I tell you, there's a lot to look at when you start digging around. And we know, we've seen this enough times, you know, this is just so obvious that it's hard to believe that the geologists can get away with just saying, oh yeah, that's just as accidental, it just happens. I don't know. All right, what I'm going to do is go over to the anatomy book in a second, but don't forget we're looking at 2 chambers, and then these are, I believe these are valves, and this is another piece of the tubing. The 3 come out the top of the heart, and there's big plumbing coming out the sides, big tubes. You got a lot of blood flowing, and this is just the top of the heart. Down below, I believe this whole thing wraps around the heart, and this is all the blood vessels and so forth that are on the surface of the heart, which feed it to the blood, because it has to do this 24 hours a day. So you need a lot of blood, and this is just saturated with blood. Now let me show you the anatomical. Hold on a second. Let's go over to, this is the anatomical over here. Now this is just laid slices of the heart coming up this way, and we can see all the different layers. That's the top part that I'm talking about right there. Those are the 3 spots coming out through the top, and then you got tubing running out the side and so forth. You see it? That's where oh, that's the plumbing. Now that just actually falls right off, and it falls off at this. Well, let me show you this one here. Here's what happens. Why the top of the heart literally falls off. Right here is the vein and the artery, both the black and the red are here. They oppose each other, and the whole top just pops right off, and it literally pops off. It just falls off. It doesn't have to be cut or anything. It falls right off. All right, you see this? When I said they break up and they just snap right in here, you see the red and you see the blue? That means this has 2 oxygens, this has 3. And they wrap right around this whole plumbing right at the top, and they just snap right off. Now, this heart, which was a heart, and also has iron banding in it, instead of dying laying like this, the heart, and that's where it died laying like this. So all the blood laid on top of each other, and it snap, 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 and that's why you get all these iron banding. Here's a piece from the middle of this. Here's what happens. You see the black? You see that black? You see the black over here? In between it is this red. The red pushes the black this way and pushes the black that way. And then you get another separation, another separation, another separation, just like this. Now, if it had died like this, it's a whole different story. And I'm going to show you one spectacular that did die like this. The top, when he hit it with a hammer, it just popped right off. And he hit it right about somewhere, right about here, I think, right where this joins. And I'm going to show you, this is just spectacular, unbelievable, but it's true. And he tapped it with a hammer, and it just popped right off. And when it did, you could see the plumbing on top, and you could see the buckets of blood in the bottom. All right, this is a strange one indeed. I gave the 15-minute challenge And I said to anybody, I said, go out and find rocks. And I don't care what they are. Find them, and if they're not extremely eroded, look at them very carefully and see if you can see anything that might tip you off that it's a body part. And I showed hundreds of different body parts. They're very simple to find, very, very easy. Usually fingers and toes and hearts, anything with a lot of blood. Organs, anything with a lot of blood. Blood is a preservative. So Phil Harris, who unfortunately has passed away, he went out, and within 15 minutes, Phil found this. Now, that was a heart that died like this, in different conditions than this. This is completely mudstone. They call this mudstone with iron banding. But it's a heart. And the mud is just nothing more than iron, red, fleshy, with a lot of iron in it. Because it's nothing more than eroded flesh, basically, is mud. Now, he sees this complete, and he sees that red spot, which is this red spot here, hold on, which he would see as this right here. So he gives it a crack, and it just pops right off. So what would he see looking up? And what would he see looking down? These are the buckets of blood. This is the plumbing. So looking one way, he's going to see the plumbing. The other way, he's going to see the buckets of blood. Well, here's looking down into the buckets of blood. That's the real red blood, and it is still wet and red. He put his finger on it, and it was wet. This one is the vein blood, basically. It's the darker blood, and that is the serum. Bang, pops open. Well, what would he see looking up? So he's looking up to the plumbing, and that's how it's separated, because it was sitting like this. The red blood settled to the bottom, and it snapped off. But it didn't snap. It only popped off when he hit it, but he just didn't. He said he just tapped it, and it popped right off. You can see how perfectly. It's just perfect. And here's what the top looks like, because there's where the plumbing is. All right, that would have been right down on that bottom buckets of blood. You got this big bucket, and then you got these other tubings coming out of here. Now the outside changed to, almost like they're like chalk or something. There was some kind of caustic chemistry that fused this pretty quick. Now, where he tapped it was right about here, which was where that little red spot was. And there it is. This is black. That's black going this way. The red is down the bottom. You see how dark this is compared to where it is at the bottom? That's because they're the two different states of blood. It's just as simple as that. It's not a huge mystery. But it's just that it's not accepted because it's just not accepted. It's just, it doesn't do that. Yes, it does. Yes, sir, it does. It absolutely does. No question about it. Now, I know my stuff has been DNA tested, and there's just no question these things I'm saying are accurate and true and can be proven. And there were giants in the earth in those days. This is a heart from some kind of giant, pretty good size. That's a tree. All right, that's one of the lungs, I'm sure. These are the alveoli, and I have those. Everything I have is the same, but it's small. All right, there's right there. And you want to see something? I have a heart here that's complete. Now I have this heart here that's just falling apart because it's all iron banded, but I have one here that turned into glass, and it still has the aorta right there. And these are the other tubes coming up, and there's one that still has a little bit of red blood. And this right here is the ventricle wall, very, very heavy ventricle wall that runs down. And here's the other side. And that turned into really literally glass. I have another one here I cut in half. And these are all the heartstrings and so forth that are inside the heart. It depends where it was and what kind of chemistry it was when it got, preserved. And that's that heavy-duty wall, you see that? Let's see if I got a shot of that. Well, yeah, right there. That's that wall. Right down the middle. And of course you got your major tube coming out of there, and you got some red blood coming out of there. This is the red blood area. And you got your big tubey, and you got your ventricle wall. Now, you got to get your mud fossil eyes on to understand this and to be able to understand what you're seeing. And then, of course, you need to be able to something to refer to. Like, I have this book is probably the best book there ever was made for human anatomy, and it is unbelievable. Very concise, very easy, nothing sophisticated here. Just very simple to follow. Visually, it's just amazing. All right, now this is basically a ramble about what we do see in that area. Now she's talking about these being pareidolia, and this is just weathering and so forth, and which I can understand people will think that, but it's just not correct. This is biology, and here's basically what it is. This stuff here is basically this stuff here. That's inside your colon. All of these are little villi, and they absorb the stuff that flows through your intestine or your colon or wherever this is. But the whole thing is covered with all kinds of different little, well, you know what? Let me just show you something. You know, most people have virtually no idea of how complex the human body is. These are the 4 different areas in your digestive system. You got your esophagus, which is the different tissues that line that and what they absorb and what they excrete. And then you have your stomach, which is where the acids are and does all your breaking down stuff. And then, of course, you got your small intestine, which is just below. That's where all those little fingers are that they're talking about, these fingers the girl was talking about. Anyway, that's in your small intestine, and that you do a lot of absorbing, and there's a lot of exchange to bring down the acid levels and so forth. And then you get into your rectum, which is your colon, rectum area, which is it reabsorbs a lot of stuff, and they all have a purpose. Let's just go with that. And this is where she was talking about these fingers. Now, a baby has no digestive system whatsoever when they're born, none, zero. They have to be exposed to the outside world to become immune, but they have to have some kind of immunities built into them, coming through the vaginal canal, feces, all that stuff is right at the moment of birth. They need that stuff. And to clean them up right away, I don't think is the best option, but it's they should be exposed to that stuff. That's what nature would do. Anyway, let's get past that. This the whole idea of being healthy is to have your stuff absorbing and not absorbing. So what does that mean? You absorb the stuff you need using the different membranes and the different enzymes to break things down, and then they build things back up into proteins. But you got to absorb what you need and don't absorb what you don't need. The stuff that you shouldn't have, like metals and things like that, your body should be able to resist those. You have enzymes made for those specific purposes, but you have to have the specific bacteria that produce those enzymes. Currently, they know there's at least 75,000 enzymes. Enzymes are produced only by bacteria. Therefore, you would have to have 75,000 different strains, because every different enzyme is created by a bacteria. Not only that, enzymes are one of the products of bacteria. The other product is the bacteria itself is literally a cleanup guy going around cleaning up, and it's a macrophage. It goes and eats things and kills things and breaks things down. And they're intelligent. They're not stupid. They chase. They know what to do. And these things are always growing and moving around in the body and attacking and killing and moving and breaking things down, building things up. That's what the enzymes do. And the only way they do that is with bacteria. And our bacteria in our bodies now is under assault 24/7 by a host of invasive things. I'm just going to move this around quick. This just shows you how detailed we can get on this. This is how the esophagus works. And then you get into the stomach, and I show this. This is out in the West. These are the different layers of muscle and connective tissue and so forth. And then you got this. You see that with all these little balls in there? I don't know if you can see that. You see all those little balls inside those? I show those too in caves. I'm telling you, this is if you have this kind of a book and you can see all these things in detail, I can't find anywhere else. Now, I read this whole thing. You see all this highlighted stuff. I read everything about the human body, basically, and you can learn every detail there is in this book. Look at how detailed this is. How the liver works, how the pancreas works, the enzymes. Gallstones, enzymes of the pancreatic juices, they gush enzymes into your body. And the pancreas is not the thing that makes the juices. The pancreas is only the factory that houses the workers, which are the bacteria. And then it goes down through the intestines and how those work. Secretion of peptic juice in the bile, mucosis, down into the digestive respiratory system, how the lungs work. This is exciting stuff, really, but it just takes time to go through it and to learn it. All right, check this out. Listen to what she has to say. Let me turn this up a smidge. Here goes.
So every winter, he rushes down the valley to visit him. The Berbers, along with the Greeks, also believed in a giant named Antaeus. He was said to be the son of Gaia, Earth, and Poseidon, the sea. His strength was tied to the earth. Whenever he touched it, he would regain his power. He fought many battles, but was finally defeated by Hercules, who was so strong he lifted him off the ground, breaking his connection to his source of power. According to Plutarch, the Roman commander Quintus Sertorius was shown a large mound by local Berber.
All right, this was supposed to be his burial ground. You see what's coming out of there? That's blood. I believe that's from where his heart would have been, or maybe it's up where his neck was. They cut his head off. I have no idea. But I can see, I think this could be looked at a little closer and maybe determine something about that. But whenever you see the red blood gushing out of something, normally it's coming out of an artery. Well, it's almost always when it's gushing, which I call that a gusher. Now, I told you I had found a giant body part in my yard here. Well, a lot of them. But this particular one, I had DNA tests, and there's a lot of it. It's not just one little piece. There's the whole hand, and there's fingers, and there's knuckles. And then way down the other end of my yard, there's a toe I found. That was maybe, I don't know, close to 100 feet down behind where the hand was. Now, up on the hill, right where the heart would be, it's completely covered with moss. And it's something like, I believe, basically something like this, only it's here on my property and it's growing moss there. Now, people would say, oh, it's just a shadow, or it's in the shadows more. No, there's a lot of shadows everywhere, and this only one spot is where the blood is. It's just dense with moss. Now, I believe going down into there, you'd find a lung. I'm not going to dig it up, but I believe that's where it is, because the hand was up over here like this, and then there's a mound over here, and it's right on the top of that mound, which would be the lefty, something laying on his back. All right, I am going to present some speculation, but this part is not speculation. This hand is about 3 feet wide here, about 4 feet wide at the top. It's a left human hand. It's been DNA tested. I have fingertips, I have knuckles, I have all kinds of things, and I have a toe as well. So I know basically the distance of this creature basically in my backyard, and it actually was under my house. What happened is I had an office put in for my wife, and they dug up, only it's not deep, it's no big deal, it's not a full foundation, so it wasn't really that deep. And they put a pile down in the woods, and I went down there one day to get some rocks, and I found his hand. And I found fingers, and wow, all kinds of stuff there. Now, if you take your left hand and put it back like that, you've got this tendon right here. That same tendon you will have in your hand. Stretch it back like that, and you can feel it. Just take your finger and go like that, you're going to feel a bump right there. Now, your thumb goes off that way. Your small finger goes off this way. This is broken off only right about up to here. All right, somewhere right about in here. And all that stuff is gone. Now, I did find a bunch of it, and there's a whole pile of stuff out there. I'm sure there's tons more in there. But what are you going to do? I can only find so much. And I had it DNA tested, human, and I had a CAT scanned a couple of the bits and pieces. Now, this silver stuff is grip skin, which is like a coating that's on your hands, and it's totally separate from your hand, and it just peel right off. That's why it's just peeling. Very, very heavy duty stuff, and it's meant to peel off. It's meant to be grip skin and tough and like a rubber glove. All right, I'm just going to play this and narrate as we go. Right about down in here, somewhere in this area, I found the giant toe, and I mean it's huge. It's one big toe about that big, and it is a big toe. And I'm going to come up here now. This is all shaded down here. There's no real moss to speak of. And people say, oh, moss just grows in the shade. Well, it grows well in the shade, yes. But usually it grows on something that's red and bloody, like a heart. And I say that right there. All right, coming up to here is the guy's heart. All right. So way back there was where his toe was. Now, up here, it's probably 70, 80 feet or so. And there is where I believe his heart was. All right, now, coming down here, this is his chest. Comes right down, and then it goes right under my wife's office where my hand was found. All right, here's the office. And it goes in like 12 feet. And it runs maybe, 12 feet that way. So it's nothing big. And it's not deep, just a little tiny thing. There's no foundation. Well, there's a footing. Now, so that's where they pulled the hand out and all the other parts. So you come from here up. His hand was laying like this. And I know that for a fact, because here, as a matter of fact, I'll prove it. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me. All right, this is one of the knuckles. All right, and that's the bone ball. And it was laying flat like this on its back. That's the tendon. The hand was like this. And this is where the muscle is. You see it? That's actually still got muscle. This one eroded right down to the ball of the bone. This one just eroded down to the muscle. And that right there is the tendon. With the tendon strap comes down, and that's what lets your finger do this. So I know it was laying on its back like this. And it completely transitioned, except for, you could tell the difference in the texture, but not too much as far as, it's turned into mudstone. But it did lay like this. So here's what you got. The guy's under here like this. Up his arm, probably, to the chest was right back here. All right, so here's his chest. And that's exactly where the heart would be. He'd be laying this way, which means his left hand was under my wife's office, which is the one I showed you, the left hand. So his left hand's here. That means his back is here. That means his left chest is right here, and that's exactly where the heart would be. And that's where all the blood is, and that's where all the moss is growing there. And there's just very, very thick with moss. I was thinking about doing something, looking at it, but I think that's crazy. I got so much stuff now. Why keep doing this? It's crazy. But here's the guy coming down here, and his arm is laying backwards underneath the office. And the other end of my yard, back here, is where I found the toe. And it's huge. It's got to be this long. All right, you saw the knuckle. All right, that's the bone ball. That's the muscle wrapped around the bone. You see it? This side's completely eroded. That side not at all, hardly at all. And that's the tendon coming down. There's the stalk of the tendon. Snaps right off where it attaches to the muscle, which lets your finger do that. So this is done. It was laying flat like this. Now, this is the toe. I'll go into that in a second. This is the fingertip, and that's been CAT scanned, DNA tested. All of this stuff is from the same creature in my backyard, and I just showed you. I think that's where his heart was. Now, that's the big fingertip, and that's fairly good size. And I took blood out of it and had it tested, and it was human. All right, I might not have shown you this, or my microphone wasn't on, I don't think. Anyway, this is the fingertip that goes along with this toe and goes along with the knuckle, which is the knuckle here, and the hand and all that stuff from my backyard. Now, don't forget, this big toe was way down here and up about 70, 80, maybe even more than that. Up on the other end was where I found the hand, underneath the office. And this toe is definitely a toe. I looked at it carefully. Let me just move it around a little bit. All right, so why would I say it's a toe? Well, first of all, it has the architecture of a toe. Secondly, this is all skin tissue. It's pretty well eroded. Which is, all this stuff is very eroded. Look at this. That's about as eroded as it gets before you lose track of what you got. But it eroded in such a magnificent way to be able to see both sides of the finger at once. Just, isn't that fabulous? Anyway, this toe, again, this is eroded too. But where did the tendons come in the bottom? Right here and here. You see that right there and right there? I put some water on that. You see them very clearly. They come right down. You see the roundness of it? You see the roundness of this one? That's what straps your toes in, and you're same with your fingers. You got tendons on both sides. I show that in the CAT scans of this big fingertip right here. There's a tendon right here and a tendon right here. This one broke off. That's why I got this green thing on here, because I broke this off. You can see the bone underneath. There's where the bone is. Well, let me show you the CAT scan. But this is where I believe is I'm not sure. This could be the artery or the vein. I think it's the artery, but I'll show you. Anyway, that was the fingertip. This is the toe. The toe I didn't get CAT scan, but I know it's a toe. Of that, there is no question. And they have these hooks. You see that hook? You say, well, what's that? That shouldn't be there. Yes, it should. They all have those. You see that? There's tendons that lock in on the sides. That's what that hook is. And so you got something to grab onto with a tendon. And then, of course, this is the bottom of the toe, just like you have a rounded little spot on your toe. And that's the actual pad that comes around on the bottom of the toe. And the black is the vein blood, and the red is the artery blood. It's got some of each, because that's just the way a body is made. You got a little of each going on. And other than that, it's nucleophilic substitution and invasion. You got some anchors here. There's places to look at. Even like this strap right there. I don't know if you can see that, but if you get it in the right light, you can see which attaches to the, right down the center. I've seen that before in other ones. Anyway, that's a toe. That's a good sized toe. And if it's, well, I know it is what it is. It is a toe. You can even see the little round spot here and the one over here. You just got to get it in the right light to see these things. All right, let me just show you the CAT scan of that fingertip. Hold on. All right, check this out. That's the fingertip. This one right here that I had CAT scanned. That's where the bone is. Tendon. There it is right there. That's the bone, tendon, and right there is the blood vessel right underneath. There's a tendon stalk wrapped around it like that. That's heavy duty, and that's where the blood flows. That's the bone right next to it. This broke off, and you can actually see the bone, no problem. This side is another tendon, and that one has black. Now, is that I got to be honest with you, I think this is the artery side, and that's the vein side, even though normally you would look for black to be the vein. I think that's basically superimposed. The colors, maybe not, I don't know. But I'm one way or the other, you're going to have a vein and an artery, it doesn't matter. So that could be the vein or could be the artery, and the other one's going to be the other. And that's that fingertip. Now, that's about right for a toe. Your big toe is bigger than your fingertip. And that's a big toe, I'm pretty sure. So, and then of course I got the finger knuckles, and I got bones, and I got all kinds of stuff from this. And it's, the pile is still there, and I just barely scraped the surface of it. All right, now, I showed you the hand, I showed you the fingertip, I showed you the knuckle, I showed you the toe. That is from a giant creature. Now, as incredible as that sounds, I have something even more incredible. This is from one creature that turned into mudstone. Different than this guy's big toe, which turned into basalt, really. Plagioclase basalts, and all kinds of iron, and his big callus here, right there, that's the callus of his foot. That's the callus of the big toe. Now, you saw the other one had a vein and an artery and tendons coming in the bottom. This has the same thing. This side here is the vein. This side here is the artery. Well, the artery leaks out. You don't even see it. You can barely even make it out. It's right there, but they leak out because the arteries don't get hard. Red blood stays fluid, basically. It rehydrates very easy. That turned hard. That's the vein blood. And the vein leaked out this side all over. That's why it's black there. This little scuzzy looking stuff down here is where your toe meets up to your next toe. All right, there's a little floppy skin under there. We got it. You got it too, probably. Now, that's the little pad on the back of the big toe, right here. All right, this little white fibery stuff is what's called plagioclase. Don't forget, maybe you couldn't see it before. This right here is the pad that's in the back of your toe. The callus is here. So this is a left foot big toe. The callus is towards the inside. That's towards, the callus is on this side when you flip it over that way. And this would be inverted, obviously. So that made no sense. Cancel the previous bulletin. All right, now this here is the pad like you have on your toe. You got one that's really gnarly that hits. That's the callus. I don't think yours is quite that bad. I would hope. I got one that gets bad, and the other one I never gives me any trouble at all. I got one that's not quite that bad, but it's not too far off. I got to really keep scrubbing it down. I don't know why. I'd like to have an answer to that if anybody knows why you make calluses on one foot and not the other. I don't know. Now, don't forget, I say geology is complete nonsense. And part of that reason is because this is not plagioclase basalt. This is the bottom of the guy's foot. That's grip skin. Remember I talked about grip skin before? It's a real thick, heavy-duty skin. This is just one toe. And that's the grip skin right there. That little, they call it plagioclase basalt. Watch. You see that? Plagioclase basalt. That's what they think is just happens from, I don't know, they'll probably blame it on magma. I have no idea what they claim. But it's not. That's just grip skin. All right, so you have seen that these plagioclases, like they're showing here, are not just something that, I don't know what they claim it happens, but this is on a toe, and it's grip skin. And that's on the bottom of this guy's toe. Now on the top, he had a toenail here that blew off. This was where the toenail was. And because of all the pressure from that black blood coming down, it literally blew the top of the toenail off. There's some of it left there, but not much. You see that? Caesar just took a hit. Okay. That's where the toenail was. Now, of course, it's gone. And it's eroded quite a bit. It would have been up here somewhere. See, I got the same thing happen to me. Oh. And they have what's called tunica. You see this here? Look at that strap right here. You see that? That is literally a strap of fabric that wraps this around. Every bone has its own tunica, which is its own wrapping. And then they all fit together. But that tunica separates it in its own little rubber bag. And let me show you a bone. It has the same thing. Hold on. All right, don't forget, this is the toe. That's the callus over here. That's the tunica. This is a bone, and I believe it's from the same creature, a little tiny bone. And it's broken here. It would have gone, I don't know where. Now, the ligament and so forth. You know, the nerves, I believe. Cartilage is still there. Now look at this. This is coating. This is what's called feldspar. And it's aluminum silicates. You see that line right there? And you see that line right there? It wraps around and attaches right back to itself like a little crescent roll. You see that line? I don't know if you'll see it any better. Sometimes wet makes it easier, sometimes it doesn't. But it's, in this case, I would say it's not helping. It comes here, and it seals. Now, on the no toe, the whole thing wraps around and it seals with a round circle. Wait till I show you that. That's on a no toe foot. The whole foot itself is wrapped in leather. And then has a seal on the front. Let me show you that. I gotta get this big baby out of the way. Hold on. All right, this one freaked me out. When I found this foot, I mean, I knew obviously it's a foot. Now, this is where the tibia comes down. That's the main bone coming down your leg, and it rocks in this cradle, that little rocker there. All right, so that's where your main support is on that right there. Now, coming down this spot right here, was attached originally the fibula. And the fibula is like the second bone on your leg coming down here. So that lets you do a little flopping around and doing this and that with your foot, having the two. This one just falls off. And they fell off on all the feet I have, and I have a slew of them. So don't forget, this is a no toe. The toes are built in. So when I'm looking at it, and I say, well, this side here, I'm sure it was the side that was in the mud, and it died laying like this. You see how it's just nice and stable, it's just flat. Now, this just fell off because there was nothing really holding it there. And that, you see how that's black there? I'm sure this is the iron banding. Once again, it separates the black from the red. And feet have a lot of blood in them. Now, and this could be some of the iron banding too, these cracks here. However, this, I believe, is a spring. We can talk about that later, because they didn't have bones in these, some of them. This one, I don't know. I can't see inside, but some of them were eroded enough. I can see the springs are extremely obvious and quite elegant, by the way. Now, this is the seam where the guy would step here, and this part would wrinkle up like this, causing a seam to occur here, and also causing this seam to occur here as it steps forward like this. All right, so this would rock here. Now, at the end, remember I told you it's all secured? This whole thing is one big piece of hide, and when you look at it in a microscope, it is very, very dense hide. It's exactly like my leather belt, identical. Now, look at this in the front. Look at that. Take your time and look at it. You see a circle there? You see a circle there? You see a little circle in the front, in the center? All of that fabric comes around. You see this? It comes in like this, and I think it's underneath there, and that's snapped on top of it. And the same over here, and the same over here, and the same over here. And it's like pinched around, like when you get a bag of bread, and it has a little plastic thing, and they put the tie on it, something like that. Right on the front. Isn't it something? When I saw it, I freaked out. I said, wow, what the hell is that? I thought it was like some special adornment. Isn't that something? But then I come to realize that's the attachment of all of the leather together, and it just pinched it there, and they put a bolt over the top of it. And that's the bottom of the guy's foot. And this one here has sort of like a sole built in. Now, you could take it for any way you want. It looks like almost like a sole of a shoe. That's why everybody, oh, that's just a shoe. No, it's not. It's not a shoe. This is part of this. Now, this, I think, is a spring. It pivots on this pin. If you can see that pin. And come in a little closer. You see, whoops, you see that round pin? Right there, and you see that curved stuff going over the, going over the top of it? I believe those are springs, and when you step on the front, it would push this up and pivot on this spring, on this pin, which would force this to go against this sole, which is structurally sound, I would think, which would flex this. So this spring would sort of spring upwards. And there's another one up here. You see this ball is right on that spring. That ball, this ball is right on that spring. So this one would go up, and if it went far enough up, this one would kick in, and that one would go up. So you get a first spring, second spring. This is quite a bit different from the other no-toe. The other no-toe has two springs in it, but there's one here and one back here, not two of them, one on top of the other. It's totally different than the other spring I will show you. But there's clearly something here, that ball like hits like here. And if it did, it would push this spring, pivoting on that pin to go up, loading the spring, is my opinion, because it has to rock against this right here. It's rocking right in against there. It's got nowhere else to go. So it's got to do that. If you're pushing here and it can't go anywhere here, it's going to load a spring effect and flatten this out more or less, where it will want to come back down. So you're loading a spring, it's going to come back down. You're using its natural spring configuration to put a little spring in your step. Now, if you really sprung your step, this would hit this one right here. And this one would go up. So now you got a spring against a spring, and you got a double loaded spring. Now we know this would have to rock right here. That's where it would have to rock, right at the pin, which it does. So that rocks, which opens up this skin, and you can see the fibers in here. It's a little different where it rocks than where it's just a solid skin, and it rocks here too. As they step forward like this has to twist up, so you're stretching the skin. Wherever the skin stretched, you end up with this stuff. It's just like the crease in your arm and so forth, wherever. And the same thing here, where this, your tibia, would rock back and forth. That would have to stretch too. And there's blood coming out of it, black and red blood. So there's no question, that's a foot. And it's a foot of a creature that we don't know about. And I'll show you the other one that has the two springs. All right, these are the ones, mine is like brand new, right out of the box. Tish Egerton took the 15-minute challenge, went out and found these in 15 minutes. She found all of these, plus the one I'm going to show you, knock your socks completely off. This again has a tibia and a fibula. This I'm sure was completely attached at one time and has eroded, so there's toes in here, but they're like sausages or something. You see this? You got that little cup? That's not normal. Now the twisting of the sideways, that is normal. Our feet are like that too. You see how it's twisted off that way? And then this almost looks like a wing nut on the bottom here, like they bolted it in there. I'm telling you, this is some crazy stuff. Wait till you see this one. Now, here's the other one she found. And I'm telling you, she found all this stuff in 15 minutes. This is what she found. Now, she had no idea what it was. You know, you just look at it. Who the hell would even think to what it was? Well, that's a foot. And this is the ball of the foot right here. That's the heel. And that strap is this strap right here. I'm going to show you in a second. That strap comes from the heel bone up to the bone that comes down, which is called the tibia. That's the big bone. And it rocks in that cradle as I showed you here. All right, so you're with me so far. Boom. It would rock there. Of course, it would be in this orientation here. And the heel bone is down here. And right at the very bottom, you see that little angular looking thing? That's going to be on all feet, have that little hard spot on the bottom. Anyway, all these old feet from this time. Now, inside here, could there be two springs? I don't think so. I think this one does not use this assembly. I think this is the earlier model. They use a single pin, or maybe this is the advanced model with a double spring tension torsion control assembly. I don't know. Built-in sole? Could be an upgrade. I don't know. You know, the guy that was just on the phone had come up here 10 years ago and did a documentary on my work, and it was never released. And he came up here with a cameraman and all that stuff, and we spent a day together, and I explained, I forget how, you know, it was a long time ago. It was at least 10 years ago. And it never went anywhere. Nobody would invest in it. Here's the problem. All of these things take money, and I didn't have any money. He didn't have any money to speak of. He thought it was that somebody would sign on to it and do it, and nobody ever did. And it's just like I told him, I said, I'm not putting any money into it. You know, if you can find somebody that wants to invest in it, because they have a production company. He doesn't have it. But he knows somebody that he worked with long ago that but you got to get some. You got to pay these people to make the production of it, and then you got to go find somebody to show it. But you have to have it pretty fancy looking to get anybody even to look at it. So that's the condition it's in right now. Is I'd like to have a documentary done, but I'm not paying anybody to do it. And Roger, this is the other Roger, that was the original one that did the documentary. He's not in a position to pay for it either. So if there's somebody out there that's in a position to pay for something, I don't know how much it costs. I have no idea. I don't want to know. I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if somebody wants to make a documentary, have them come to me. And I would go. I want Roger to be involved. He's a nice guy. He started. He knew right away what was going on, and I'm going to be doing some conversations with him. As a matter of fact, he's charging up his phone now. We're going to be talking about some things very shortly that he's missed. We dropped off with each other long ago and hadn't talked for years, basically, and somehow we sort of popped out of the woodwork together, and we've been talking for a while. This is a nice guy. He's engaging. He's a good interview conversationalist. I hope. He is with me, I feel. And I hope you'll feel the same way. So anyway, I'm going to go back into this, but I want you to know that that's what we're going to be doing. And if somebody comes up as a basketball player or something, got a bunch of money, wants to put into this to do a good presentation, I have all the stuff. I mean, you see what I have. It's not something that can be denied. It's just that it's so spectacular that people have a hard time with it. But I don't think now, as I was saying to Roger, I said, I think things have changed. I mean, back then, trust me, you say that something what we were talking about, and he knew right away what it was. He was good to go. He said, "Boy, when they see this, they're going to go crazy." Just what I thought. Never happened, and it's just starting to happen now. And I think it's really starting to be, getting really almost mainstream. And a little exposure is going to tip it over the side, I think. But anyway, I can't do any more exposing than I've been doing. I do the best I can with what I got, is what I told Roger. So anyway, I'm going to get back to this. All right, so listen to this now. Trish goes out. She finds all these feet. She found a gigantic eyeball, all kinds of stuff. And she comes back with this. And she says, "What do you think this is?" And I said, "It's a foot." I said, "But I've never seen anything like this." Those are springs. Normally you got bones. You see right there? Those aren't springs. Those are bones. And they're driven by tendons, basically, which are really rubbery straps. They're always under tension. That's why they're tendons. They have a spring to them, but it's a linear spring. This has a curled spring, two of them. Now I'm going to show you this in some detail. But again, this was Tish Egerton, and that was my foot. This was the one she found. Well, she found a batch of them, and I found a batch of them too. I have I think at least 4, maybe 5 different styles of feet here, and that's in addition to hers. And she sent me these. I have a foot of hers and a whole leg here, and I looked at it. That's exactly what they are. That's a foot, and that is the strap, which I'm going to show you in extreme detail, and it has a wrinkle zone absolutely for certain. And these here, I have to estimate and guess what they are and how they work, but I think I have a pretty good understanding now.